Imagine being a poor black girl in 1907 Oklahoma, sitting on land everyone thinks is worthless, until you're the only one who can hear the oil roaring beneath your feet like a hidden river. That's exactly what happens to Sarah Rector, and her fight to protect that land is about to put her up against greedy oil men, corrupt laws, and even hired killers. In 1907, when Oklahoma became a state, descendants of Creek freedmen were entitled to land grants. One of them was a young girl named Sarah Rector, who received her allotment but had no idea what to do with it. The land was considered useless, good for nothing but tornadoes and snakes. Her father wanted to sell it. But one day, Sarah heard something beneath her land. She heard oil flowing underground like a fast-moving river. Her parents didn't believe her, and they didn't even have the $30 needed to pay the property tax. Still, Sarah was certain. She said, "God gave me ears to hear it. He gave me the land for a reason." So Sarah and her father Joe started visiting oil companies in Muskogee, but these people wouldn't even let a black man enter their offices. They kept throwing Joe out. At a company called Pan Oklahoma Petroleum, they even mistook him for the trash man. Meanwhile, Sarah walked into a cafe that was for whites only. A man there offered the thirsty girl a lemonade instead of water. After she drank it, the waitress picked up her cup with a towel, then quickly ushered Sarah outside. On the other side, Joe was being handed trash. He said, "I'm not here for the trash. I came to ask if you'll dig for oil on my daughter's land." Just then, Sarah barged in and said, "I have 160 acres and there's oil beneath it." She even pointed out her land on the map. She could read a map. Big Jim from the company went with them to see the land. He said drilling there would be a long shot. It would take a lot of money and resources, hundreds of feet of drilling, and months of work. Sarah replied, "You got to lease the land first." Impressed by her, Big Jim presented his standard contract, 50 cents per acre for 6 months. But Sarah knew the standard rate was $1. She demanded a 1/8 royalty on top. Big Jim said, "All right, I'll give you 8 points if there's a gusher." Sarah read the entire contract before signing. When Joe asked about it, she calmly explained the royalty to him. For the next 3 months, the Pan Oak Company drilled at full speed. After 3 months, Big Jim said, "We came up dry. You can have the equipment. It costs more to haul it off than to leave it." Sarah felt defeated. A few days later, a man came to their house to buy the land. He told Joe, "How about we discuss it man to man?" Joe asked Sarah to step away. As she walked off, she muttered, "It's my land." She stood aside, listening. The man offered Joe $2 per acre. Joe said, "The county office told me it was worth 3. The man replied, "Are you going high on me?" Joe said, "This is my daughter's land. I need to make a little profit." The man immediately raised it to $6. Joe said, "It's a fair offer, but I need to ask my daughter first." Hearing that, the buyer turned and left. Sarah realized Pan Oak must have sent this man. They had definitely found something and now wanted the land for themselves. Sarah's mother, Rose, quickly pulled out the land deed. "White folks," she said, "can do what they want with land as long as they've got that paper." The whole family rushed to hide the deed on the property, but then they saw a car approaching. They hid. Armed men entered the house and started searching for the deed. Sarah's dog Blue ran at them barking, and they shot him. The men left. Big Jim got angry at his own men. "Now they know we want it," he snapped. Meanwhile, wounded Blue ran off somewhere. Sarah cried, "That deed is a curse. They'll shoot us too." But Rose reminded her, "You were the one who said God gave you that land for a reason." The next day, Sarah went looking for her dog. All she found was his collar. While searching, she wandered into an oil camp. She wasn't afraid to walk among those rough men. There, she ran into Bert again, the man from the cafe. Sarah said, "We met at the cafe and you were circling names in the newspaper." Bert's partner, Mace, said, "Yeah, that must have been him." Bert was hunting oil too. He called himself a finder and a wildcatter. Sarah explained, "There's oil beneath my land. Pan Oak leased it, lied that it's dry, then sent a swindler to con me into selling it outright for $6 an acre for a so-called dry hole." She needed a partner who could help her get the oil out. Bert brushed her off with, "Good luck with that, honeybee." That made Sarah angry. "I'm offering you a business proposition and you're treating me like a child." Bert reconsidered and asked about her land. He admitted he didn't have his own drilling equipment. Sarah said, "No problem. Pan Oak left all their equipment on my land." Hearing that, Bert grabbed Mace and headed out with her. But Sarah stopped them. "Before we go, we need to work out our terms." They agreed to a 50-50 split and shook hands. Bert was thrilled when he saw the top-grade equipment. He said, "That's some good ground. Classic anticline dome." He got Sarah's parents' blessing and started drilling. Pan Oak had already gone 1,000 feet deep. After they abandoned the rig, the new crew renamed it Sarah's Oil. One day while talking, Bert told Sarah how he and Mace started with gold and silver and now chased oil. "We've done it all," he said. "I once made 70 grand on a gusher, then lost it all on the next dry hole." They were sure oil was there. The only question was how much. Just then, Big Jim showed up. Mace ran inside for a gun. Big Jim declared, "This is my land. I'll give you 20 minutes to leave." He waived the lease. He had smudged the date and changed it. Sarah said, "That's no better than kids cheating at school." Bert aimed his gun at Big Jim. Jim called him a bunco man, someone who cons women out of their money. He then offered Sarah $20 an acre, but she said, "I ain't sellin'." Big Jim's arrival told Bert there was a lot of oil here, and they were ready to fight for it. Later, while drilling, their machine started acting up. Bert told Mace to stop before it blew. Mace checked and said the machine was stuck. They were nearly 1,500 feet down. This might be the end of the road. They'd have to abandon the well. Mace suggested dynamiting the loose rock, but Bert thought it was too risky and would take a lot of explosives. Sarah snapped, "No wonder you guys come up with nothing but dry holes. You give up so easy." Mace suggested a wall hook, but that worked only half the time, was hard to find, and needed more expensive equipment. Sarah said, "My teacher says everything in life has value. What do we got here of value?" That sparked an idea for Bert. He took Sarah and a mud sample to a geologist for testing. The test cost $10. Bert scraped together the money from every pocket he had. The test would take a few hours. While they waited, Bert ran into a woman he'd charmed before. He'd once claimed to know her dead husband, who was going to buy small oil leases in her name. With smooth talk, he got himself invited to dinner. A little later, the geologist finally reported. The oil was likely a few thousand feet deeper, but it was poor quality, heavily tainted with salt water. Bert and Sarah were discouraged, but something felt off to him. They waited. As soon as the geologist stepped outside, Bert grabbed him, asking, "Where are you going?" The man was taking the sample to Pan Oak. They had paid him off. Now they needed a real test. Bert mentioned an old man in town and casually used a racist term. Sarah immediately got angry. Bert realized his mistake and apologized. Sarah said, "That kind of talk is automatic with some people." Bert answered, "But that ain't me." She told him, "The town coming up is Taft. It's a black town, my town." There they went to a self-taught geologist. "I know more than any still-breathing geologist," he boasted. He charged only $5. Bert and Sarah rated for the test. When it was done, the old man got excited. "I've never seen anything like this," he said. "Density is alarming. Gravity reading is 40 degrees, the lightest. The crude is so pure, this field could be the richest in all Oklahoma." Sarah had trainloads of oil, but the well was stuck and they needed a lot of money to fix it. Mace joked, "Should we rob a bank now?" The next day, Bert went to the bank for a loan. He showed them the sample and asked for $2,000 to buy a wall hook. The bank refused. They wouldn't loan money on a clogged well, too risky. As he left, Bert saw some widows outside a cafe and started flirting. He took one woman after another inside. Sarah watched from a distance. She finally walked up and said, "I'm Bert's business partner," and laid out the proposition. "We need equipment, and it's expensive," she told the woman. She even added about another girl, "She's nice and all, but I don't think he likes her as much as you," to help close the deal. The waitress told the marshal to step in. As soon as Bert and Sarah saw the marshal, they got up and left. Bert then bought explosives. The seller saw Sarah and walked toward her, about to say something racist, but Bert cut him off with a punch, saying, "She's with me." When they got home, the marshal arrived with grim news. A couple of Creek Nation kids had been murdered in their sleep. He came to warn families. Sarah broke down inside. Those children were her classmates. Rose panicked. Her daughter wasn't safe either. She told Bert, "My daughter is the salt of my earth and the sun in my sky. Nothing happens to her." The next day, Mace asked Bert, "What did you give those widows in exchange for their money? More than you own, I bet. That kind of deal gets you thrown in jail." Bert replied, "We needed the money and I got it. Now hurry and get to work." They started the engine again. Everyone was happy to see it running, but trouble wasn't over. The machine got stuck again. At the same time, several cars approached. Pan Oak's legal counsel stepped out and handed Sarah some papers. It was a legal filing demanding the return of all Pan Oak equipment and a claim on all the oil. They said Sarah had unlawfully thrown them off the land based on the sublease she'd signed. Bert laughed. "An 11-year-old girl threw you out?" He warned them, "Any of you Pan Oak goons step foot on this land and we will shoot you." Privately, the lawyer told Bert his employer had a generous offer and hinted the whole case could be tied up in court for years. Bert rejected the offer without even hearing it, so they beat him. Later, Bert sat in a car with Big Jim. Big Jim said, "What a wonderful business we're in, but what's this little whirl going to do with all that money?" He claimed the courts were tired of dealing with an uneducated, underage, ex-slave population, and the state was insisting on white guardians. The plan was simple. Bert would become Sarah's guardian and then sell the land to Pan Oak. Bert thought for a moment, then demanded 15 points in return. Big Jim said the standard was 12.5. Bert answered, "If you want me to Welsh on this girl, you gotta make it worth it." Big Jim agreed. After that, Bert went to Sarah's house and told the family to grab their rifles and leave. Rose, afraid, said, "If they want the land, they can have it." She only cared about her daughter's safety. Later, Bert told Mace about the Pan Oak deal. They'd get 15% and Sarah's mom clearly wanted out. "The well is spiked. Best thing is to let the big dogs come in and spud a new well." But Mace didn't want to betray Sarah. Bert argued, "In the world we live in, they're not going to let a colored girl hold on to a mother lode this size, and besides, I'm going to make it up to her afterward." Meanwhile, when Sarah's family got home, their dog Blue had returned, alive. Everyone was overjoyed. That night, Rose asked Sarah, "If I had asked you before, what would you give to have old Blue back?" Sarah said, "Everything." Rose asked, "You still feel that way?" She took Blue's return as a sign. The very next day, Bert arrived to get Sarah to sign guardianship papers. Sarah said, "This makes you the boss of my life." Bert told her, "I need you to trust me because I know the system and how to work it." Sarah assigned. She looked to her parents and asked, "This is so you can protect me, right?" Bert said yes. She signed. Now there would be a court hearing to verify everything. Sarah shook Bert's hand just like before, and he left. Joe still didn't trust Bert. He's been chasing riches his whole life. Is he worthy of trust? He wondered. Sarah believed he was. Her father didn't. Rose said, "I won't tolerate this at my kitchen table. We can't see what's inside a person's heart, but tomorrow we can walk into that courtroom with our heads high." That meant Sarah would have to speak in front of the judge. Rose told her, "God." Outside the court, many black people gathered to support Sarah and oppose the white guardian law, since many guardians were stealing oil-rich land from their own wards. Everyone now knew there was oil beneath Sarah's land. Sarah arrived at court. A woman named Miss Barnard volunteered to represent her, but the judge made her sit down. The judge questioned Sarah, and she asked, "Why can't my parents do it? The state gave me that property on account of my ancestors." She went on, "When the land had only weeds and lizards, it was all mine. But when people found out there was oil on it, they started thinking it's theirs, and I have to get a white guardian." She just wanted to keep what was given to her. "Isn't that what the law is for?" she asked. The black people in the courtroom voiced their support. Even so, the judge adjourned the hearing and granted guardianship to Bert. Bert's mind was racing. As soon as they stepped outside, Joe asked him for a copy of the papers. Miss Barnard would keep track of everything for them. Bert handed over the documents and told Sarah, "I just need you to trust me." Then he went straight to Big Jim. "I need 15 points," he said, "and not just for her land, but for every parcel around it." Bert knew Sarah's land had 40.6 gravity, and Big Jim was quietly buying up surrounding parcels to steal their oil. Big Jim accepted Bert's conditions. Bert added, "And I want her safety guaranteed." Sarah saw Bert entering the Pan Oak office. She confronted him. "You said you'd do right by me." Bert said, "And I am. I got a plan. The oil industry is tough. You'll get your share." But Sarah replied, "This ain't about me. It's about your soul, Mr. Bert Smith." Later, Mace drove Sarah's family home. On his way back, he spotted a hidden car. It was Pan Oak's men. They pulled guns on him. Mace drew his own, but there were 2 of them. They killed him. Hearing gunshots, Rose told her 2 children to run toward Creek Nation. Pan Oak's men were now outside their house. Rose grabbed a knife. Joe grabbed his gun. A little while later, Bert saw Pan Oak's men leaving. Miss Barnard appeared, bringing a journalist named Mr. Farr to meet Sarah. Bert asked to come along. When they arrived at the house, Joe came out with his gun. He explained Pan Oak's men had come for Sarah, and he had to shoot to drive them off. Bert went searching for Mace and found only his dead body. Miss Barnard said, "Sarah is next. They have a legal claim to the land based on what you signed, and they want to kill her so someone like me can't go charging back to court." Bert suggested going back to the judge to cancel his guardianship and give it to her instead, but for that they had to find Sarah. Meanwhile, Sarah, her little brother, and Blue were waiting for their people at South Stream, just as their mother instructed. Pan Oak's men entered Creek territory, asking about a colored girl. "We just want the girl," they said. Getting no response, they moved on. Sarah was praying, "Help me, Jesus." Then she saw a car coming, but it was Pan Oak's thugs. She told her brother to run. They started shooting at them, but just then the tribal police arrived. Sarah's family came right behind the officers. Rose reunited with her children. Sarah found out about Mace's murder. Bert apologized to her for everything. Miss Barnard went back to the judge. She argued that Sarah's guardianship needed to be re-examined and that America was watching while the girl's life was in danger. The judge took another look and found a mistake in the paperwork. Bert wasn't from Oklahoma. He was from Texas, though he claimed to be an Oklahoma resident. He couldn't prove full residency. Because of that, the guardianship became null and void. Sarah chose Miss Barnard as her new guardian. The judge agreed and said he would notify Pan Oak, but warned them to be prepared. Bert now had a plan to stop Pan Oak for good. He brought dynamite. Rose asked, "What's this for?" Bert said, "We bury that dynamite about 1,000 feet underground. Either the well caves in on itself, or it brings forth everything we've been hoping for." The next morning, Big Jim arrived at Sarah's land with a white flag, saying he just wanted to talk. Bert let him in. Rose hid both her children. Jim asked, "You people want a war?" Joe answered, "No, just leave." Big Jim had a hidden machine gun in his car. He suddenly opened fire. Everyone took cover. Sarah quickly blasted the dynamite down the well. Everything started shaking. Oil shot out of the ground in a massive black fountain. Sarah ran toward it, overjoyed. Big Jim yelled, "That's my oil!" He pulled his gun, but Bert stopped him, saying he had planted dynamite on the surrounding wells too. As Big Jim aimed at Sarah, Joe shot the gun out of his hand. The police arrived and arrested him. Sarah danced with joy watching her oil. Her dream had finally come true. Sometime later, everyone was celebrating. Then the widow Bert had borrowed money from showed up. Because of that, Bert would have to leave. When Sarah saw him going, she asked, "Where are you going?" Bert explained that the widow now owned 250% of his share. Sarah protested, "But we're partners, I'll help you." Bert didn't want to take her money. Sarah had already taught him so much, especially when she talked about his soul, something nobody else had ever done. He said, "I'm a treasure hunter. Some other treasure is out there waiting for me." Despite her protests, he said goodbye and left. After that, Sarah went on to do many things, but the very first thing she did was buy that cafe and open it to everyone, black and white alike. And with that, friends, this story comes to an end.